But let's talk about this next match we're about to see here first. It's Northern Blue versus Tempo Storm. And actually talking about Northern Blue a little bit, that roster, of course, is Minpoika, Waz, Raikou, and Zuniaki. Some serious tournament veterans in there. These guys have been around the block more than a few times, been around the world more than a few times playing this game. Do you guys have any initial thoughts about this team, Northern Blue?
Overall, just pretty stacked roster. You can see there on the screen right now that is Raikou, sort of a powerhouse mage from the European region. He's been one of the players to look at in these tournaments because he's played so phenomenally. A lot of people think his ego's a little bit too big, but I like to think that he can back it up. You know, he's proven how good he is. He's actually renamed, I think one of the seasons he actually renamed his character Best World and actually got to the top of the ladder with that name. So obviously an incredible player. You can see here, he is here to stay. He feels like he's going to be playing in these tournaments for a very long time. Yeah,
he actually said when we were talking to him yesterday, he said, well, I guess I should probably, I don't remember exactly what we were asking him about, like the travel or something along those lines. And he said, yeah, I guess I'm just going to have to get used to it because I'm going to keep doing this every year, like keep flying out to BlizzCon every year. So definitely a very, very confident player, very good mage as well. He's really, really good. Let's move over and take a look at Tempo Storm now, actually, looking at the team that Northern Blue will be facing off against. Tempo Storm, that's almost like the NA Dream Team in a lot of ways. Like, these guys have been around for ages in the North American scene. That's, of course, going to be Jamili, who's the character on the right there. I love Jamili so much. Chanimal, Peekaboo, and Goreki. These guys, they've played together for ages. They know each other really super well. They've played against each other a lot in the past as well. Rodney, I know that like you actually used to play, in fact, I believe you won a BlizzCon with Chanimal at one time. How do you feel about this lineup here?
Yeah, I'm super excited to see Chanimal's back at BlizzCon. I feel like he deserves a spot here because as a previous teammate of his, I could tell that he was such a great player at the time. It was awesome to have him on my team. He was just really good at controlling the enemy team, and he's always communicating with both of us, telling us, all right, I have a full fear, all right, half fear, your turn, your turn. So the communication from him, to me, is really important as a teammate.
And looking at Goreki here, we have him on the screen. I feel like Goreki, like when you match him up against names like Jamili, like Chanimal, and like Peekaboo, Goreki can often get sort of lost in the mix there, but this guy is a seriously awesome player. He can play all sorts of different classes. Like he's got so many different classes and specs that he can play that occasionally he just loads into the arena and you're like, I had no idea that Goreki played a Windwalker or anything like that.
Yeah, and he ends up just
crazy.
Beating you relentlessly. Yeah, he's a really impressive player overall. Like you said, sometimes his name gets lost among some of the bigger players, but he's really well respected within the North American community as that multi-class or someone who can play all the different healers. Not only that, but he can play DPS roles as well. I'm sure he can play tank roles. Just overall, a really great player, and I'm going to be expecting a lot out of him in this this series here.
So before this match gets underway, before we've even seen anybody load into an arena, I want to put you guys on the spot. Rodney, I'll start with you. Who do you think has the best chance to win this series?
You know, I think my money's on Northern Gaming Blue. I think if Tempo Storm has their absolute A-game on, which I didn't see at Regionals, then they can take it. But I'm not expecting that 2-week period between Regionals and BlizzCon to be like enough for them to be able to take over this monster of a team.
Elliot, how about you?
See, I'm on the other side. I'm on the other side of things. I'm going to go with Tempo Storm this one. Northern Gaming Blue, obviously an exceptional team, but I think there was a big wake-up call for Tempo Storm. Like you said, they didn't have necessarily the best performance at the regional tournament, but I think them getting third place, kind of squeaking by in the BlizzCon, was really like, whoa, we need to practice, and I think they have, and I think they're here to bring it today.
Yeah, they've definitely been practicing a lot. So we've got one for Northern Blue. We've got one for Tempo Storm. We need a tiebreaker, so we're going to head down to Rich. Rich, how are you feeling about this matchup?
Well, Josh, it's definitely a pretty tough tiebreaker to call, but one of the best things about being at an event like this is actually getting to talk to all the players about their predictions. And when we actually look at Tempo Storm, a lot of the teams were saying they were one of the least prepared teams just based off of their performance. But before this match, I got to talk to Frosty. And Frosty actually said they have some comps that we might not be expecting. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to put my vote with Northern Gaming Blue. And if you're watching this match and you don't know the players very well, I suggest you take a peek at the Rogues because these two are rivals. And Josh, I think they're going to be out for blood.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some seriously... I think we actually have a good chance of seeing a mirror matchup here. So we're going to see a lot of just not trying to outcomp their opponents, but a lot of trying to outplay their opponents, which could be really, really cool. Also, I just want to mention Northern Gaming Blue. I think that's a good call here, and the reason I say that for winning this series, I think Northern Gaming Blue is a good call here, and the reason I say that is because Chanimal stopped me earlier, and he was like, Josh, are you casting our series? And I was like, yeah. And he said, I'm so mad at you right now. Because it turns out every single game of theirs that I've cast, they've lost. So...
Are you putting a hex on them?
Oh,
Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, guys. All right, we're going to take a real quick look here at the Observer UI because we have made some changes. We want to walk you guys through those a little bit so that you know what you're taking a look at. You can see underneath the health bars, you can see the cooldowns now actually are going to be sitting there. That top row is going to be your defensive cooldowns, the way that you keep yourself alive. Bottom row is going to be throughput or DPS cooldowns. You can also see the trinket, what choice they've made in that first honor talent row. And then behind the actual unit frame there, you can see if they're on fire, that means they've used offensive cooldowns. They're trying to do as much damage as possible, and if you see a shield there, that means they're using a defensive cooldown. And wow, we're actually just flying through things here. The game is just about to start. The gates are open. This is the first game between Northern Blue and Tempo Storm.
You might as well just jump right into the action. It does look like Tempo Storm is going to be busting out that Enhancement Shaman, Demonology Warlock, Holy Paladin, and Northern Blue going with something a little bit unexpected, the Assassination Rogue, Unholy Death Knight, Resto Druid. This isn't something I really expected in this first game. Most of us probably thought they were going to be running that Rogue Mage Mirror matchup, but both teams opting to run something else.
Yeah, and NG Blue was saying earlier, they're doing whatever it takes to win, but Tempo Storm, surprisingly, not playing that Mage Rogue, which, you know, usually they go for the mirror match because they want to prove themselves, but here, looks like we have a turtle at the start. Waz waiting for his opener right outside of Goreki's range. He wants to get a sap on somebody. He's waiting, but they're all in combat already because I believe Zuniaki ran in and got combat, so they're trying. There it is. They got a sap onto Jamili. They're trying to open. Waz is still waiting. He's trying to find his target. He grows channels and runs straight over to Goreki. Usually the Paladins are their target here, so be watching Goreki's cooldowns and HP throughout the match.
He's going to be taking a little bit of damage in this opener, deciding to use that Blessing of Protection right away on that Vendetta coming out from Waz. So efficient cooldown trade coming out from Goreki. Well done by him, but that isn't a very early cooldown coming out from Goreki. If they're able to reconnect onto him, he also used that gateway. It's going to be hard for him to actually live. Of course, he is playing, I believe, is he playing Long Wings or the Avenging Crusader? I think he's playing
Looks
Long
like
Wings.
Goreki's playing Long Wings for this matchup. He decided that was better. And there's the Bloodlust coming out from Jamili. Big damage onto Waz. He has Cloak of Shadow still, so he should be fine here. And Midpoike's on that Rest Druid to have those heal over times effects. But there is a kidney shot going out onto Goreki. He has his Fellord up to stop some of the damage. There's some damage going out to Waz and Zuniaki. They're doing a ton of damage to the enemy team here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, Goreki caught into that Asphyxiate. He needs to try to get away and get some of those casts off. He has that wings up right now, so his healing is going to be empowered. He's trying to get as much value out of that Fellord coming up from Channels as possible, just sitting in that, making sure Zuniaki and Waz are taking as much damage as possible. Right now, Minpoike has his entire team topped off. He still has that Iron Bark available. His Barskin has basically all his defensive up. Minpoike playing very safe right now, not pushing in for those Cyclones, just keeping his team alive, letting Waz and Zuniaki sort of get this pressure and momentum rolling and slowly rotting through Tempo Storm's defensive cooldowns.
Yeah, and Tempo Storm not looking great here. There's no wings on Goreki, and he was barely even healing through the damage in the first place with those wings. Jamili's sitting low HP. They don't have much pressure in the first place. They need to get that burst going out onto Waz, but there's a kidney shot into Goreki. If they can get CC rolling, then they'll be able to get Jamili down here. Jamili still has this wall, but is it going to be enough? There is a Strangulate onto Goreki. They're just hitting him as much as possible. Waz famously going after Paladins every game as much as he can, and it's been working it whenever I've watched these games. There's a wall coming out from Jamili. It doesn't actually do that much. Zuniaki and Waz sitting at pretty high HP a lot of the time. They haven't gotten that burst setup coming out from Demo Lock Enhanced that you usually expect to see.
Yeah, not so far, but they're slowly trying to work through these cooldowns. Minpoike playing that Relentless Spec, of course, so if they can get him in a CC chain, they might be able to burst down. Zuniaki goes down to 10% HP. The Enhancement Shaman as well as that Demonology Warlock burst coming in. Zuniaki does not have AMS available for quite some time, using that Icebound Fortitude, trying to heal himself up. He's kiting away. Minpoike also using that Iron Bark on him to empower some of his HOTS. Tempo Storm sort of striking back for the first time in this game, almost killing Zuniaki instantly.
Yeah, and that's what you expect out of this team. You want to see the burst setups and the one-shots, but now that that didn't work, they're going to be in trouble for a while. There's no bubble for Goreki. He does have bot for the next Vendetta, which is coming up in about 50 seconds here, which is great for him, but no wings for 20 as well. If they can get the damage set up whenever Zuniaki has his cooldowns up, it's going to be huge, but looks like we're just a bit of turtling for now, which is actually good for Tempo Storm. They need some of those cooldowns back. They need that Bloodlust especially to come back up from Jamili so you can get that burst off.
Yeah, Goreki, of course, not going to have that bubble available for another 5 minutes. They're just sitting in the open. Janimals is trying to build up as many pets as possible. He has a lot of imps right now, so you're going to be looking for him to get off that burst. Demonic Empowerment coming up. He's looking for that huge burst. Hand of Gul'dan coming out once again. Goreki gets gripped in, put into that full kidney shot. He's going to be in a little bit of trouble. Bloodlust coming out from Jamili. They want to counter pressure as much as possible. Fellord coming out as well. The Hodge going out on him in Poike. Waz could be in a little bit of trouble. It looks like Northern Gaming Blue is doing a good job avoiding that incoming damage, just using the pillar, staying out of that Fellord, and just avoiding as much damage as possible.
Yeah, and Vendetta is going to come back up here in a second. Koreki does have the bop available, but if they just decide to get a crowd control chain on him, it could be still trouble for one of the other two teammates. Damage coming out on the Zuniaki and Waz. Huge damage from Tempo Storm here. They're known for their burst at this comp, and they've been very successful at it. There's a Vendetta onto Koreki. He immediately bops it. He's been very key with those throughout the entire game, bopping and bubbling every single Vendetta immediately. Tons of damage coming out onto Waz here. Minpoike got feared, and if you get any more CC on him, they could go down. He does pop the evasion to stop some of Jamili's damage, and he still has Cloak available, so he should be okay here.
Yeah, but Minpoike is having a really hard time topping him off right now. Jamili dispelling some of those hots onto Waz. Does have Cloak of Shadows, the Hodge going out onto Minpoike as well. Zuniaki could be in a little bit of trouble. Shanimal spamming out those casts, the full fear, trying to get landed onto Minpoike. Does a good job line of setting that Hand of Gul'dan coming out. Shanimal's going to be spamming out that damage. The anti-magic zone comes out from Zuniaki to prevent some of that incoming burst, but Zuniaki still dangerously low, hovering around 40% HP. That's not a position you want to be in against something like a Demonology Warlock and Enhancement Shaman. They have so much burst potential right now, and it looks like Temple Storm is doing an excellent job keeping this pressure rolling, but Goreki's mana is not looking very good right now. He's down to around 20% mana right now. He can't go for a drink. Jamili's in a lot of trouble. The kidney shot into the bash, into the garrote on Jamili. He gates away and gets gripped back immediately. He needs to try to kite. He needs to get away. Goreki caught into that asphyxiate. He has the Blessing of Sacrifice out onto Jamili to prevent some of this incoming damage, so Jamili should survive for now, but that's quite a bit of defensive cooldowns coming out from Goreki.
Yeah, there was actually a sap on Goreki. He's taking a ton of damage here now. Actually, he pops his sack, but he's the one taking the most damage here. If they swapped him, there's a kidney shot onto him. He bops it immediately. Really good plays here coming out from him, but again, Waz has his Vendetta in 5 seconds. That is a major cooldown for them. If he can get that off onto Goreki, that does not have Bubble, does not have Bob. That could spell huge trouble, especially with Wings being down soon. They actually are getting some burst off onto Waz and Zuniaki. The damage coming out from Channel has been very high this game.
That's a really good point. For the first time in the game, the Blessing of Protection and Bubble aren't going to line up with that Vendetta, and Vendetta is going to come out. Goreki being caught into that kidney shot. Shanimals and Jamili need to counter pressure. They need to do something. Waz being put into the full Hodge, and Poike able to dispel the swap over onto Zuniaki, uses the AMS. Goreki in a lot of trouble, though. He's trying to get away with freedom. Waz immediately on top of him, though. Zuniaki trying to reconnect as well. Can he grip Zuniaki back? He does. Or sorry, can he grip Goreki back? And he does. The freedom's still up, though. He's able to get a little bit of distance. He fakes the Mind Freeze. Goreki's going to be able to get off some Flash of Lights. He can't really do too much, though. Down to 10% HP. Northern Gaming Blue is looking very good in this matchup so far. How is Goreki still alive? He's trying to spam out those casts. He fakes both interrupts. Finally, it looks like he's going to go down, and that is going to be the first game for Northern Gaming Blue. Very close matchup up against Temple Storm. And a little bit of unexpected turn of events. I mean, I really didn't see them running these compositions, but this is what we were talking about, guys. These guys are prepared with so many different comps. Winning this first match for Northern Gaming Blue is key, and they did such a great job.
Yeah, surprising amounts of burst throughout the game coming out from Chanimal and Jamili, but it just wasn't ever enough. They got him down to 10%, they got him down to 20%, but it was never the kill. They always had some kind of cooldown to mitigate it, and just the consistent pressure throughout the game were forcing Goreki's cooldowns, and finally they caught him without the bubble, they caught him without the bop, and as soon as that Vendetta was on him, we knew that was the time where it was time for them to shine, and they got him down after that, like 40 seconds of just training him.
Yeah, definitely. Waz, I think, was really a player to be looking at that entire match. Just the way that he was able to find those saps in the middle of the game, the way he was able to be putting out that constant damage, and then when he needed it, when they needed that kill, be able to blow all of his offensive cooldowns like that Vendetta, like you were talking about, and just be able to steal that kill there. Waz, we kind of, I think the tagline we came up for him is kind of King of the Shadows, because he's almost in a lot of ways kind of a self-professed King of the Shadows. He's been talking a lot about how he thinks he's the best rogue. He plays all the specs, so he's obviously the best rogue. Maybe being a little bit overconfident there. I don't know, do you guys consider that overconfidence, or is that just him being honest about how he's really good at this game?
It could be him being honest about it. I mean, obviously these players feel like they're really good. That's why they're in the position they're in, and they're looking to sort of dethrone some of these other players and get the attention onto themselves. That matchup was really interesting to me, though, because Holy Paladins, we've been seeing in these practice areas, have been used quite a bit. So Northern Gaming Blue having this sort of composition of the Unholy Death Knight and the Assassination Rogue, you sort of slowly whittle through the defensives of a Holy Pally. You survive, you use Vendetta, you get a big cooldown. You survive, use Vendetta, you get a big cooldown. You survive, use Vendetta, and they end up dying. So really efficient cooldown trades, and I like that they busted out this comp that I've never really seen before.
Yeah. We're actually going to check in with Rich real quick and get his thoughts on that game as well. Rich, how did you feel about that first game?
So I actually got to watch the game in the player lounge with both Method NA and EU. It was a great experience because I was with one of the best warlocks in the world, actually getting to watch Chenmo play Demonology. But if you weren't watching Waz, you were doing it wrong. He was on absolute fire right now. You asked the question if he's being a little bit too confident, saying he's one of the best rogues in the game. The actual quote that he said to me me was, I'm the best all-around rogue. I can play every single spec. And was he too confident? You can't argue with results. Going into the next match, though, I bet Waz really wants to be playing against Peekaboo in a mirror. He wants to show that he is the better rogue in this matchup. And Josh, I think he might be.
It's entirely possible. It is a bit, I think, early to call whether or not he's actually seeing those results yet, because, of course, this was just one game that's been played in a best-of-5. That does mean that Northern Blue is now up 1-0 in this series, so that's a good advantage for them. That first map, we were talking about the rules a little bit earlier, but getting that first map, winning on that blind pick on the Grand Arena, that's huge. That's really super important.
Now, what do you do as Northern Gaming Blue? They sort of have to, I mean, obviously it looks like the map selected by Temple Storm is going to be Dalaran Sewers. Now, as Northern Gaming Blue, they have to select a comp that's going to give them the best overall chance. Do you think that's going to be the Assassination Rogue, the Unholy Death Knight, and the Druid once again, or do you think they'll go back to something more traditional like that Rogue Mage Paladin?
I think what might happen here is they might swap back to that Rogue Mage Paladin, and here's why. If they think that Tempo Storm's Rogue Mage Paladin can beat the current comp that they're in, because, you know, the blind pick, both teams don't know what the other person's going to run. I'm sure they did not see this Unholy DK Rogue coming. If they think Mage Rogue beats it, then they'll just swap. They already have a ton of good comps. They have the Shadow Priest Mage. They have the Rogue Mage. Tons of really good players in that team. So I assume we'll see a swap coming here.
Do you think that if they were to stick with the Rogue and the Death Knight, do you think that Rogue Mage beats that? Or is that a little bit up in the air still? Because obviously it's still very early in Legion. We're still kind of figuring out and just watching as the meta sort of establishes itself during these tournaments. Do you think that the Rogue Mage would have an advantage in that matchup?
I think right now only NG Blue can tell us the answer to that, because I'm sure they practice it backstage. I'm sure they've been playing against teams here. There's a lot of Mage Rogues. They had something to practice against, and we will see. I think they will know the answer to that.
All right, so next step is going to be finding out exactly what composition Northern Blue is going to lock in. Remember, the order goes, the losing team, in this case Tempo Storm, gets to declare the map. Then the winning team, which is Northern Blue, is going to declare their composition. And then the losing team, Tempo Storm, will be able to choose their composition once they have all of that knowledge. So as soon as we get final confirmation of what these players have decided to lock in, we will be able to have that information and share it with you guys. Any last predictions before we find out? Are you also, Elliot, are you thinking they're going to go with the Rogue Mage this time?
I feel like it's the safe bet. Just go with that Rogue Mage Paladin. It's going to be consistent against everything. There's nothing that really counters it. You have a chance against everything. If they do decide, if Temple Storm decides to mirror them or play that Enhancement Shaman Demonology Warlock Paladin, they do have a chance against that, and they can always fall back on the fact that they won that first game. They can always just win on their counters, and I feel like the safe choice is the smart choice in this case.
Yeah, and I do know that with Tempo Storm, especially with someone like Gorecki on their team, they have a ton of different compositions they can actually run. So it can actually be somewhat daunting for a team like Northern Blue in this situation when you say, okay, we can pick this comp, but we know that they have like 2 or 3 different ways that they could potentially counter it. And so that actually kind of puts Northern Blue in a bit of a bind here at the moment. Like, they have to select something, and they're going to have to go with something relatively safe that they think they can outplay. But we do have confirmation that they have locked in their composition, and we will be finding out what that is right now. Raikou locking in the Fire Mage. That's cool. Waz going to be going Assassination Rogue, and Min Poika on the Holy Paladin. So they're going with the Rogue Mage Paladin, but they're playing Fire, and I've heard that in Mirrors, the Fire Mage actually ends up working out better. Can you guys tell us a little bit of why that is?
Yeah, so I think the main reason is a lot of your damage is a lot more instant, so you can get off that consistent damage, spamming out those Phoenix Flames, those Power Blasts, whereas the Frost Mage is a little bit more setup time, and in a direct mirror, the Fire Mage having that Dragon's Breath to interrupt you, as well as Prismatic Cloak when he's blinking around to stop. Like, basically, it's so hard for a Frost Mage to get off his giant nukes against a Fire Mage, whereas the Fire Mage can get out that consistent pressure. So I think that's the big reason why Fire is preferred in a mirror.
Do we know how strong Raikou is with Fire? Because it's something that obviously it's Legion. A lot of things have changed quite a bit, and so many mages were focusing almost exclusively on Frost for a long time. Do either of you have any idea of how comfortable he is playing Fire?
I saw him saving a lot of the combustions for the Vendetta, using them at the same time, making sure you get cooldowns with it. So I'm sure he's well versed in saving his cooldowns. I don't know about like optimal play with that spec, but to me, Fire is more about just getting the consistent damage out. So you don't need to have the perfect preferred playstyle down. You just need to be able to get bursts off with your rogue at the right times, and you know, Fire has a lot of those tools to be able to do that.
So where do you think Tempo Storm goes from here now? Do you think they're going to try for the straight up mirror, or are they going to pull out some other composition that they think is going to counter this?
So I think they assumed that they would be running Rogue Mage Paladin the first game, so like we can see right here, Tempo Storm once again locking in that Enhancement Shaman Demonology Warlock Holy Pally. I feel like this is the matchup that they wanted in the first game. It didn't end up working out for them, obviously, but I think they have a very good shot up against this Rogue Mage Pally team with this Enhancement Shaman, Holy Pally, Demonology Warlock.
So both teams have actually chosen a Holy Paladin. What is it about the Holy Paladin, as this game is about to get underway here, what is it about the Holy Paladin that's making them so attractive to so many different compositions in this patch?
It's really got to be those melee wings. Whenever they use that melee wings, they don't need to worry about interrupts as much. They can just melee people and get their judgments off and do a lot of damage and healing at the same time. It really helps your team out to survive. They also have Bot for Vendetta. They have Bubble from Vendetta. They have a lot of answers to a lot of the stronger classes right now.
All right, well, this game is about to get started. You can see Raikou and Chanimal there. We're going to be keeping an eye on them during the broadcast, or excuse me, during the match as well. The gates are just about to open. This is game 2 between Northern Blue and Tempo Storm. Northern Blue up 1-0, but Tempo Storm looking to stage a comeback.
It's going to be a very high-pressure game coming out from both teams. Obviously, the Demonology Warlock and the Enhancement Shaman do fairly good consistent damage, but you're going to be looking to see that Bloodlust come out from Jamili, which is really going to provide that extra burst and extra damage, so it can be very scary for Northern Blue.
And there's a sap going out onto Gorecki. The Chanimals in a cheap shot, and Jamili in a cheap. It's a really good start from them. There's also a kidney shot on Gorecki. They need to get those CC chains rolling onto him as much as possible. Chanimal's already using 2 of his stronger defensive cooldowns just to survive through this, but Gorecki, the one taking the damage, they made a hard swap to him, and he immediately has to bob. He does use it on the Vendetta very smartly, trying to use his Avenging Crusader here to get some pressure going for his team.
Yeah, they're trying to pressure down. Raikou down to 10% into that Ice Block right away, and that's that Bloodlust burst we were talking about. The swap over onto Minpoike now, so much pressure coming out from Temple Storm. Raikou doing everything he can once he's out of that Ice Block to sort of slow down Temple Storm's initial aggression with those sheeps. Raikou, though, not going to have that Ice Block available for another 5 minutes. Jamili, of course, going to have Bloodlust up in another 40 seconds, so those Bloodlusts are really going to be their kill opportunity. Minpoike being put into the full Hodge, deciding to actually shrink it out of that. I think he might have used the human racial as well, which is that additional stun trinket, so he's going to be out of that. He has his wings up. He's going to be able to top off his team. Gorecki once again getting swapped to Raikou, and Waz trying to reconnect out onto him, but Raikou getting bursted down a little bit. Nice temporal shield coming out from Raikou on that Axe Toss, so really Temple Storm not able to capitalize on that Axe Toss.
And Waz still has Cloak here. There is a full Hex on Minpoike if they can get some damage going, but Channel is stuck behind the pillar trying to get fears off and not really succeeding. There's a sheep under Jamili and damage starting to go out onto Gorecki. If they can get some damage rolling onto Gorecki, it could be huge here. He does have his wings. He pops it a little earlier. They're actually doing a ton of damage to Minpoike's team. I don't know how they're managing to get so much off. Raikou sitting at half, Waz sitting at half. The wings going to be fading pretty soon from Gorecki. There's a Bloodlust coming out from Jamili, trying to get damage on whoever he can possibly get damage on. Raikou on the run. Minpoike gets his Tears Deliverance off. That's huge for them. That's a big healing cooldown, and he should be able to top his team off after that.
Yeah, Raikou's going to be completely fine because of that heal. Temporal Shield is back up once again. Raikou in full retreat, though. This is the first time that Northern Gaming Blue has had to play defensive in this matchup. Waz taking a little bit of damage right now as well. Gorecki playing nice and safe on that pillar near the gateway if they swap to him, as he is the optimal target for Team Northern Gaming Blue. He's going to be able to get away with that. His cooldowns are back up. Of course, he does have that bubble as well. Raikou once again getting swapped to, just pulling back as far as possible. Minpoike able to top him off. Vendetta's up for Waz, though. They want to get aggressive. Chanimal's taking a little bit of damage right now. He's spamming out those Hand of Gul'dans. Gorecki once again positioning himself behind the pillar. Raikou trying to get that pressure out on Jamili. A little bit of a split strategy coming out from Northern Gaming Blue right now, but Waz has to be careful he doesn't get over aggressive. He's down to 40% HP. He does, of course, have that evasion and Cloak of Shadows available if he needs it. And Minpoike has a lot of cooldowns as well. Chanimal's getting kidney shot, though. Going to be using that Sacrificial Pact once it's up to prevent the overall kill on him. Raikou, though, getting bursted down once again. The damage coming out from Temple Storm is insane, and the Bloodlust once again connects onto Raikou, and they're able to take him down.
And that is the burst we expect from Tempo Storm. That Bloodlust is popped, and they both are ready together to use that implosion to get the Valkyries off, to get the Storm Strikes off. They're preparing for this the entire game. And Jamili, to me, was one of the key players of that game. He got 3 hexes on Minpoike that game, and it was really carrying them, getting the trinket, getting the CC chain to where they forced an Ice Block. And that first Ice Block came out in the first 10 seconds of the match.
Yeah, talking about Jamili, he obviously was playing incredibly well there, but we can look at Chanimal there too as someone who was really pulling a lot of his weight. That Demonology burst, it's crazy, but it does take a bit of setup, and he was actually getting focused a lot more in that matchup than he was in the previous one, actually taking a lot more damage than in the first game. When you're under fire like that, it's actually really tough to be able to get that full setup going. He was also doing a great job with the Fel Lords, like planting those down in places. Oftentimes you see people use the Fel Lord because they're trying to kill somebody, and while that's good and all, I mean, he's a giant demon with an axe. He's pretty good at killing things. Oftentimes what you really want to use that Fel Lord for is more area denial and saying, I'm going to put this down here behind this pillar or behind these boxes in the case of Dalaran Sewers. because I don't want you to go there. I want you to be forced out into the open, and that's what they were able to do. They were able to force Raikou out into the open and then score the kill on him.
Well, what they were doing is forcing Raikou to sort of push in. I feel like positioning was really key there for Temple Storm's victory. Dalaran Sewer is obviously a very good map for them. Like you said, they have that Fel Lord for zone denial and aerial denial. Goreki playing very smart, positioning himself behind the box. Anytime Waz wants to push in, Jamili's there to do damage to him. Chanimals is there to do damage to him. If Raikou wants to push in and get some crowd control, they're able to burst him down as well. It makes it really awkward for Minpoike to position himself in a way that he can actually get heals out, because they're literally killing Raikou in like Blood Elf silences and DR Hodges and stuff like that.
Yeah, we do have Rich down, ready to give us his own thoughts on how that went. Rich, it's game 2. What are your thoughts?
So looking at the first game, before we even jump into the second game, we saw Northern Gaming Blue pick a comp that we were a little surprised to see. And I was talking to Swapsy, and it was because they were worried about a particular comp, and it's the comp that we just saw. They were scared of none other than Chanimal. Last time we saw him play was in the regionals, and he was playing Affliction. Did have a 100% win rate on it. It was pretty impressive, but he saw that Demonology was going to be so important going into this tournament, and he picked it up so quick. And this comp that it's opened them up to is really putting in work right now, and I think we might see a little bit more of it, Josh.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see more of Chanimal playing that Demonology. It's funny you say he picked it up so quick, because Chanimal, obviously, this is not his first time in a tournament like this. This is, we were saying earlier, Rodney, you actually won BlizzCon with him. I believe that was 2013 that you actually won with him.
Yep.
Really strong, prominent player. He's been here several times in the past. He really knows what he's doing, and he's been playing Warlock for so long that if you want to find somebody that knows everything there is to know about Warlock and can play all of the Warlock specs effectively, Chanimal would be one of the first people to go to in that situation. We do have a map choice. It looks like Northern Blue has decided to take this next game to Tolvaron Arena. Guys, what do you think about that pick?
Not too surprised. We saw the closer range map pick from the last team, so usually the other team counters with the big map, Tolvaron. So a lot of what we see is Nagrand into Tolvaron or Dalaran, and then the opposite map. So not a big surprise. What the question for me is, which comps will they play? Tempo Storm has to lock in a comp here that they think can beat any of the 2 comps they just fought. So what will it be? What do you guys think?
I actually don't like this map choice coming out from Northern Gaming Blue. And the reason why I don't like it is because if they decide to run that Rogue Death Knight Druid again, they're going to have to chase a Holy Pally who has that Divine Steed, who has that freedom. He's got a lot of open space to kite through, and they're going to be having to kite through that gauntlet of Chanimal on that Demonology Warlock, Jamili on that Enhancement Shaman. I feel like it's going to be very difficult for them, whereas on Nagrand, it's a little bit smaller, a little bit easier. So interesting choice. Maybe they were going to make a different comp swap or something?
Yeah, do you think that... So obviously it will be Tempo Storm's comp choice next. Do you think that Tempo Storm's going to stick with the Demonology Enhancement Shaman, or do you think they're going to go with something else, like maybe that Rogue Mage that we're kind of expecting to see them play at some point in the series?
I feel like it's safe for them to say, you know what, we lost the first game. It was a very close game. They had a lot of kill opportunities. I think the bigger map is going to provide them a lot more opportunities moving forward in this game to land kills and for Goreki to survive that double melee onslaught. So I don't know. I think it's safe for them to go with that Demonology Warlock Enhancement Shaman Pally again.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm kind of creeping on Jamili's screen there a little bit. It does look like they're sticking with the same composition so far, but we'll get final confirmation of that here in a moment. Obviously, we're giving them a little bit of time to sort of discuss amongst themselves, really kind of figure out exactly what they want to do. They do get a little bit of time in between each game to do that, so we will get confirmation of that comp, and then we will be able to share it with you guys. Looks like we might have that coming right now, and in fact, yes, we do. They are going to be sticking with the Demonology Warlock, Chanimal playing that, Goreki on the Holy Paladin, and Jamili on the Enhancement Shaman.
Now, the counter to this, what I want to think about is, what if they pick double caster? They have Zuniaki on the bench ready for that Shadow Priest Mage composition. They've been practicing that, and they're really good at that. They played it last expansion. They played it before that. He's been to multiple BlizzCons as Shadow Priest Mage already, so I would not be surprised to see a 12-round pick with Shadow Priest Mage.
Yeah, do you think they'll actually go for the... what are your thoughts, Elliot? Do you think they'll actually go for the sort of shatter play setup?
I think it would be smart. I'm not exactly sure how Frost Mage and Shadow Priest play into an Enhancement Shaman. It might work out for them. They get a lot of crowd control out onto that Holy Paladin. They'll have some burst opportunities. I think if the game ends up going longer, they might be able to actually punish Chanimals as well. If they just play really safe, they play tight to that pillar, and it looks like you were right, Rodney.
Wow.
Raiku's going to be playing Frost Mage, so no longer on that Fire Specialization, and Poike on that Holy Paladin, and Zuniaki on the Shadow Priest, so really taking advantage of Tolvaron. And I don't know how this matchup plays out, but we'll have to see.
It's going to be a tough game for Jamili. on those big maps like Toveron, fighting a Frost Mage, fighting a Shadow Priest, you have to chase one of those 2 targets across the map to get the kill. And especially if it's been Poike, he's going to be hiding behind a pillar 40 yards away from his healer. So it's going to be really rough chasing down anyone, and I feel like it's just going to be rough for Tempo Storm here.
Yeah, it does feel good to see Zuniaki playing Shadow Priest. That's kind of what he became known for when he was first sort of breaking into the scene. He's always been really good at that Shadow Priest. We saw him playing the Death Knight a little bit already, but seeing that Shadow Priest come out, it makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. It's like we're going back home, right? We're going to Tolvaron. We got Zuniaki on Shadow Priest. We got Min Poike healing. It's going to be good. But the game is just about to start here. We got Northern Gaming Blue versus Tempo Storm. It's tied up 1-1. This is Northern Gaming's time to sort of try to come back and close out this series. Well, not close it out. It is a best of 5, but they need to start making some momentum back in the winning direction here.
All right, and we do have the gates opening here. Zuniaki and Raikou going to be found in the center of the map all the time, trying to kite Jamili out into the middle of the map. Zuniaki trying to get some insanity at the start. The game's going to start pretty slow because Jamili has to find his way in past that Frostbane Shadow Priest wall.
Yeah, Tempo Storm, of course, going to be playing very defensive. Channel's going to be trying to spam out those Ms. Zuniaki, like you said, going to be building up that insanity, though. Tempo Storm doesn't want to allow him to keep building that up unless they plan on playing very safe throughout the entire game, but I don't know. That might even be a mistake. We're going to be looking to see which team decides to push in. It looks like Zuniaki wants to get aggressive. We saw him doing that at the European Regionals, making a lot of aggressive plays, pushing in, getting those triple fears, so we're going to have to see if he decides to play like that against Tempo Storm. I just feel like if he does, though, he's going to get punished really hard.
And I think some tournament nerves hurting Channel here. He actually summoned imps into the middle of the map. Look at Zuniaki's insanity. He started at 0, and now he's maxed out. Whenever Jamili decides to run, and he already has Void Form, which is a huge part of Shadow Priest right now.
Yep, Chanimals, of course, is no longer going to have any imps. Raikou just using his Frozen Orb to sort of decimate those imps as well. Hand of Gul'dan coming out from Chanimals. Demonic Empowerment as well. He wants to get aggressive. Jamili, though, immediately pulling back as soon as Raikou and Zuniaki start casting. Zuniaki is going to be pushing in. Like we said, these are the aggressive plays coming out from Zuniaki. The Fear going out onto Goreki as well as Chanimals. Looks like Jamili is the target of choice. The Hodge going out from Min Poike onto Jamili. Jamili wants to turn around the aggression a little bit. Zuniaki right now does have that Power Infusion as well as his minion up. He's going to be doing a lot of damage for the time being. Goreki putting that Polymorph going out on Chanimals as well. Raikou just having complete control over Temple Storm right now.
And there's a Bloodlust from Jamili, but he can't really find his target. He's hitting Raikou now. He was hitting Zuniaki for a bit, but they can't really get anything started here. There goes the Bloodlust already gone, and they haven't really got much done yet. Meanwhile, the cooldown's still available for Goreki. He sat through all his CC chain. He still has everything left, so basic start from both teams, really nothing going on, but there's the full fear onto Goreki, into the Polymorph. It's something you expect out of the Shadow Priest Mage. There's going to be a long CC chain onto Goreki. If they can get damage out onto Jamili, that will really spell doom for them.
That is a Fell Lord coming out from Chanimals too. It's a little bit of zone denial, but it's going to be easy for Raikou and Zuniaki to kite out of that. Jamili bursting down Zuniaki quite a bit right now. Dips down to around 40% HP, and Poike still has all his defensive cooldowns. He needs to make sure he actually gets them out, though. The Axe Toss into the Hex out on the Poike. Jamili playing it safe, doesn't want to push out into the middle of the map. Raikou using that Ice Storm. Glacial Spike about to connect onto Jamili. Doesn't do too much damage. The Counter-Strike Totem going to be coming out from Jamili as well, playing it very safe. He knows when that Mage Burst is coming. He is a Mage main, so he's going to have those well-timed Counter-Strike Totems. Raiku's going to have to be a little bit careful about those.
Yeah, and Goreki really not having to use any cooldowns yet. The main one he really has to watch out for is the Bubble and the Wings. So there goes the Wings, but Bubble's going to be the big one because he needs to break out of that CC chain. One person to note here we haven't talked about much is Chanimal. He's been the one who's been free casting on his team while they're going for that burst, and he's been heavily shutting it down. Back when I played with Chanimal, he always was the one that was left open, and it was a terrible mistake because he'd get fears, he'd get interrupts, he'd get tongues out. He would stop the whole enemy team by himself, so they need to watch out for that.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Chanimal is, of course, a monster on that Warlock, but the triple fear coming out from Zuniaki. I don't know how it actually broke on every single member of Temple Storm, but it did immediately. Jamili now getting aggressive, blowing that Bloodlust. Zuniaki taking a huge spike of damage, but Min Poike should be able to top him off. He gets caught into that Axe Toss. Zuniaki could be in a little bit of trouble right now. The Blessing of Sacrifice not available from Min Poike. Raikou getting swapped to as well, down to 40% HP. Temple Storm looking to close out this game. Zuniaki, though, of course, still has that dispersed Raikou as well, having that Ice Block. Northern Gaming Blue, if they want to win this game, they need to make sure they're not getting too aggressive, but I feel like if Temple Storm plays safe, it's going to be hard for Northern Gaming Blue to actually finish this game off.
Yeah, and they need to get those burst setups going onto Jamili, onto Chanimal. They need something going here. Meanwhile, Raikou taking a ton of damage. He does Temporal Shield, really good use of that, get some health back, but that's really scary for them. They keep getting in CC chains on Min Poike and just bursting people down. Sometimes you're going to be able to die without even using cooldowns with the burst like this, so they need to be really careful. They're pulling back as much as possible throughout the game, and Jamili is actually able to stick on targets, which is what I was really worried for earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Raiku's still low. Minpoike having a hard time topping off his team as the wings are available in 10 seconds. That's going to empower his healing. He should be able to top off his team, but they need to hold on just a little bit longer. Chanimal's pulling back a little bit. Jamili in the thick of things right now. Glacial Spike hitting over onto Jamili. A little bit of damage coming out from him, but Goreki still has a lot of cooldowns to deal with that. Jamili using that Bloodlust. A lot of burst coming out onto Zuniaki, down to 5% HP. The Dispersion comes out right in the nick of time. A very close call there for Northern Gaming Blue, and that's what makes this Enhancement Shaman Demonology Warlock so scary to play against, that any moment they can just kill you instantly.
Yeah, the pressure from NG Blue is just not there this game. They haven't had that burst setup. They haven't had the CC change going to Goreki. Look where Goreki's standing. He's just been there the entire game. There's been no polymorphs, no fears on him. Zuniaki and Raikou are just sitting back, and I don't think that's going to win them the game. Zuniaki getting really low here, taking a ton of damage. It's just been consistent pressure from Chanimal and Jamili.
Yeah, Minpoike actually using his bubble there, so no more defensive cooldowns available. They're swapping over onto Raikou. Raikou trying to get off that Glacial Spike, gets Shadow Furied by Chanimals though. Shut down once again. Raikou just having such a hard time getting out damage. Raikou deciding to play in full retreat, shooting out those Glacial Spikes once again on Jamili. He's just not connecting for that much damage though. He's not able to get off those big Ice Form Frost Bolts to build up those big Icicles to get those big Glacial Spikes. So not too much burst coming out from Northern Gaming Blue. This is looking very good for Temple Storm so far. Right now, Northern Gaming Blue really doesn't have too many defensive cooldowns available. They do want to push in. Goreki's just going to be retreating. Chanimals once again in retreat as well. Jamili just using that close pillar. He's in enemy territory right now, but he's doing a good job line of sighting. The Glacial Spike about to connect on Jamili shocks it, so he's going to be preventing that incoming damage. Goreki just trying to stabilize his HP, but he has so many defensive cooldowns to still work through, so I think Temple Storm is completely fine.
And Goreki's starting to fall behind here. He decides to pop his wings to top his team up. We are now entering Dampening. Dampening is going to favor Tempo Storm here. They've had the consistent pressure throughout the entire game, and even though they're a bit low now, the wings just was popped, and he will be able to top his team up. There's a full fear on a Bolt DPS, but Zuniaki can't afford to use fears like that right now. He throws a silence on the Goreki, but his team is actually fine right now. They need to get real CC rolling onto Goreki. They need to get the polymorphs, full stuns. And there's damage coming out on the Zuniaki. He does have to pop his dispersion. The Fellord coming out as well, just to get a little bit extra burst from Chanimal. Crazy damage always coming out from these two in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Zuniaki, fortunate for him, did have that Dispersion up once again. It's not the highest cooldown, so they can play safe while Dispersion's down. It comes up relatively fast. Raikou, of course, still has all his defensive cooldowns. Casting Circle coming out from Chanimals. He wants to get aggressive. Raikou realizing the situation, spamming out those polymorphs onto Chanimals, shutting down some of that incoming damage. Goreki taking quite a bit of damage. Interestingly enough, Goreki is actually lower on mana. He's actually relatively low on HP right now. Chanimals, Jamili, and Goreki in full retreat. Goreki needs to get a drink off, but of course, Northern Gaming Blue realizes this, and they push in, get the full Hodge over onto Goreki. Jamili could be in a lot of trouble right now. The triple fear coming out from Zuniaki as well. Jamili could just go down here right now. Goreki using that bubble. He's going to be spamming out those heals. They need to stop that incoming damage coming out from Raikou. The Master Spell on the bubble, though, coming out from Zuniaki. The silence follows it up. Goreki could be in a lot of trouble. Managed to pull behind the pillar, gets up those heals. He's going to be completely fine for the time being. The Bloodlust available for Jamili right now. Northern Gaming Blue needs to make sure that they don't play too over-aggressive right now. They spill blood in the water, but Zuniaki down to 20% HP. This just could be it right now. Right now, Minpoike is trying to reconnect some heals onto him, tops off Zuniaki, and now Zuniaki's going to be pushing in. The triple fear comes out once again. Jamili, the target of choice, trying to reconnect. He actually gates. He's going to be crossing the entire map. Glacial Spike connects, though. Jamili down to 5% HP, gets taken down, and Northern Gaming Blue is going to take this third game and go up 2-1 in this series.
And they finally found that CC chain. They got two full fears in a row. They started pushing in on top of them. As soon as they saw he was low mana, they said, okay, this is the time to go. They're all pulling back. Let's follow them in. They're going to be stuck at the pillar together, and that's how you get those triple fears. So really, Zuniaki, the person to cheer for that game.
And I feel like these two teams, like the realization has started to set in. Like, this is opening week. Like, we're actually playing for real now. They've been doing, obviously, a lot of practice over the past several weeks and the past several days as well here at the MLG Arena. But I think that realization, you can hear them in the first couple of games. They were, you know, you could hear them bantering against each other a little bit. But that last match, they were I would not be surprised if the viewers at home were actually able to hear them. They were shouting so loud from the stage. Just the amount of energy and excitement coming out from both of these teams at this point. I really feel like it's really starting to sink into them that this is for real. They're actually playing for real now.
That's one of the really impressive things to me about Zuniaki as well, is a lot of the times these players get a little bit nervous and they don't play to win, they just play not to lose. And Zuniaki, because he's such a veteran, he's able to make those confident plays, he's able to push in, get those triple fears, really set up that crowd control for his team, and it's just really impressive to watch.
Yeah, Zuniaki to me, one of the star players there. He knew to pull back throughout the entire game. He was saying, okay, I'm really in trouble here. He has Bloodlust coming up soon. I'll stay back. He used Dispersion at perfect times. First one was at 5%. When he got bursted down to 10% in a matter of seconds, and then the second Dispersion saving his life as well. And then as soon as it was about to come back up, he decided to push in, and he knew the perfect time. So I'm sure he was one of the people to make that call on his team to push in.
All right, well, we are going to find out here very, very soon if Northern Gaming Blue is going to close this out 3-1 or if Tempo Storm is going to start to mount their comeback. But before we get into that, we are going to take a really short break. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
The World of Warcraft Arena World Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
You know, I've been in more scrapes and adventures than I can count. That being said, I've never seen anything like this.
Hail, hero!
Is that a frog in a bubble? Oh gosh, they are so cute. Well then, there's so many friendly people here. Coming through. Love the hair.
Oh, the cavalry's here!
This place is awesome! I found some Vikings! Wow, you're big! The name's Tracer, and the Nexus could always use more heroes. Ah! Not money!
This is a place of funky magical phenomena. Anything goes for one night in
The reviews are in, and the critics agree. Overwatch is a perfect 10.
Psst, what are you looking at?
It's time to pick a side.
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console. Rated T for teen.
The World of Warcraft Arena World Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
They're looking to finish them off undefeated and have qualified for BlizzCon.
Welcome back, everybody. We are at the World of Warcraft Arena World Championship at the MLG Arena in Columbus, Ohio. We are in the middle of a pretty epic series so far, I have to say, between Northern Blue and Tempo Storm. Northern Blue up 2-1, but Tempo Storm definitely looking to try to take this back. Guys, do you think they have a shot here? Do you think they can actually turn it back around? Because the important thing about winning that first game, which Northern Blue did on the Grand Arena, is that now they only have to win on their own map choice and their own counter comp pick. Do you think that Tempo Storm can overcome that?
I think right now Northern Gaming Blue is doing an excellent job. Obviously, they're playing very well, smart with their defensive cooldowns, but this composition that Tempo Storm is running, the Enhancement Shaman, the Demonology Warlock, anything can happen. Although Northern Gaming Blue is up 2-1 right now, there's so many close calls throughout that game that it's really hard to tell, and I do think Tempo Storm still has an excellent chance in this series.
Yeah, to me,
definitely.
it just depends if NG Blue has a counter pick ready for this. They just fought the same comp. They know what they're playing against. They're probably going to lock it in. So if they can come up with a solution to that and say, hey, we're going to force you to change comp, make you a little bit uncomfortable, because they're getting pretty comfortable on this Demonology enhancement. They've been playing it the whole time. So maybe try to force them to play a different composition. I think that'll throw them off here.
Yeah, we do have Rich standing by to give us his own thoughts as well. Rich, what you got going on, man?
Yeah, so for everyone who's just tuning in, one of the things to definitely keep an eye out for that we didn't mention is just how insane Zuniaki just played. If they get another comp going with Zuniaki, expect to see a lot out of him, especially after watching him in EU. He was a big factor to why they were able to come out on top in that tournament, taking first place and getting a great seed here today, Josh.
Yeah, they're looking to do incredibly well. Obviously, the way that you do come out of these groups does very strongly affect your seeding in that championship bracket. So that's really what they're going to want to go. It's not just a matter of surviving through the group. It's a matter of surviving through the group and placing well coming out of it. You guys are tournament veterans. How much does that really affect the way that you play, especially in these early matches? Like, they're not really playing for their tournament lives right now. They're playing for the ability to possibly get a better spot later on. How does that really affect your mindset?
It's really all about tournament nerves here, and we have a lot of veterans on the table, so I think they're used to this. They're used to those gates opening and all the nerves. They're used to that, so, you know, it'll go away a little bit faster for them, and I think people like Zuniaki especially are ready. He's a calm and collected guy. Every time I talk to him, he's really relaxed, so he'll be ready for anything here.
So we do have a map choice here from Tempo Storm, and we're going to Ashamane's Fall, one of the new arenas added in World of Warcraft Legion. Elliot, how do you feel about this map choice?
It's interesting because if you look at the previous games, Northern Gaming Blue, of course, did win on the Grand Arena as well as Tolvaron. Ashamane's Fall is the most similar map to those two. So Temple Storm picking the map that's the most similar to the ones that they've already lost on is interesting. Maybe something like a Blackrock Hold could have been better, but maybe Temple Storm has a different composition that they're going to be running. This map, I don't feel like plays into the advantage of either team particularly. So I think it's relatively even in terms of who has an advantage on this map.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Like, I feel like a couple of those earlier games that we saw, like, yeah, Northern Blue did end up coming out on top, but there were definitely scary moments for them in those games. So even though it does kind of tie into, like, they are picking the map that's kind of against them in a sense, I feel like they might, like, maybe they just feel like, okay, you know what, we had a little bit of a rest, now it's time to actually come out here and get a kill. Of course, we do need to find out what composition it is that Northern Blue has locked in, and they are going with their Rogue Mage Paladin once again.
The bread and butter composition for Northern Gaming Blue. Raikou on that Fire Mage, Waz on the Assassination Rogue, and Mipoke on that Holy Pally. This comp is so scary because it has so much consistent damage, a lot of crowd control, and is very, very survivable. The Holy Pally offers a lot of defensive cooldowns. Fire Mages are inherently hard to kill. Assassination Rogues are hard to kill. So just a very well-rounded comp. I like the pick coming out from them, and these guys are experts at it.
Yeah, I was wondering if Tempo Storm was trying to bait them into that Shadow Priest Mage again, because it's a very similar map. Why not pick Shadow Priest Mage again, guys? And so it doesn't seem like they fell for that bait. So they do have the Mage Rogue locked in. Jamili and Peekaboo better have an answer for this. So I could see the Mirror coming out here. They could be playing the same composition, but I'm not sure if that's their best bet here. And yes, they are continuing to go with that. These can still be scary games. The damage coming out from Chanimal and Jamili was bursty, but if they aren't able to get that consistently, if they're able to shut Chanimals down more, it could spell doom for them.
Well, this is the exact same matchup as Game 2. Temple Storm ended up winning Game 2. They had a lot of pressure. They really weren't pressured that much. Of course, I feel like they had the best map possible in that Game 2, that Dalaran Sewers. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them, but I think if they play solid, they have excellent positioning like they did in Game 2, they can definitely win the series.
Yeah, they certainly have it within them. Like, these guys have always been really, really strong, really, really solid. We've seen so much out of them over the years. Last year, it was actually almost the same team that was playing as the Banner Temple Storm. They made a couple of roster swaps since then, but still, with always having Jamili there, always having Peekaboo there, they've always played super well. And now, bringing Chanimal into the mix and Gorecki as well, I feel like this is a really, really strong lineup that they've got. If anybody can come back from this 2-1 deficit, it's definitely these guys, but we're about to find out. The game's about to get underway. This is, of course, Game 4 between Northern Gaming Blue and Tempo Storm. If Northern Gaming wins this, then they will close out this series as the victor. If Tempo Storm wins, they've still got a long road ahead of them.
And I'm looking for Tempo Storm's positioning here, because this is not as easy to position on as Dalaran Sewers. There's a lot better spots for your team to go when you're in trouble, but this one, you kind of have more open areas. They don't have to stand on top of that Fell Lord. So I'm looking to where Chanimals is going to position all of his defensives.
Yeah, absolutely. Channel's just trying to build up that damage. Raikou trying to push in. He has that invisibility up right now. Waz actually getting knocked out, though. He's going to be opening up onto Channels. They want to get that damage going immediately. Minpoike pushing in, getting the full Hodge out onto Goreki. Sheep onto Jamili as well. Raikou following up the Hodge with the Sheep. Right now, Channels could be in a little bit of trouble using that sacrificial back. They're going to be absorbing some of that incoming damage. Demonology Warlocks are inherently hard to kill, so I don't know if this is the best target choice, but so far, Northern Gaming Blue has excellent pressure onto Channels.
And there's the Vendetta and the immediate Bob coming from Goreki. It does get spell stolen. Raikou with the combustion up, doing as much damage as possible to Chanimal as he can. They need to get more CC going onto Goreki if they want to get Chanimals down here, because now he has defensives up. And there is the Fel Lord doing a ton of damage to Raikou and Waz. If they stick around, it's going to be trouble for them. But again, it's a lot easier for them to avoid it on this map. They don't have that Dalaran sewers area to kite in. And the Avenging Crusader and Wings will fall from Goreki soon, so we should see a ton of damage on one of these two teams.
Yeah, right now, Northern Gaming Blue, they have to be careful of those Counter-Strike totems. Jamili had an excellently timed Counter-Strike totem, got a lot of value out of that earlier. Minpoike finally took it down. The double Dragon's Breath coming out from Raikou. He wants to get those Polymorphs out. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to. Jamili's going to be shutting that down with that Wind Shear to prevent that incoming Polycast. Right now, both teams have stabilized. They both sort of pulling back to their pillars. Waz still in the thick of it, though. He wants to get some pressure out onto Chanimals. The Hodge, though, going out onto Waz. Can Chanimals burst him down? Doesn't look like he's going to be able to. Minpoike pushing in. He's trying to get the Hodge out onto Goreki. Both Paladins trying to Hodge each other. The Belf Silence going out on him in Poike. So Goreki doing an excellent job avoiding some of that incoming crowd control onto him. But he's taking a lot of damage right now. Going to be using that Avenging Crusader to get out some damage and to top himself off.
Yeah, and Waz is not able to find his target. He wants to go on Goreki as much as possible, but he's trying to shut down Chanimals and Jamili more. If you notice, the damage on NG Blue hasn't been as high as it has been previously. They've been shutting down Chanimal. They've been just shutting down Jamili. Jamili's sitting in a Nova, going into the Polymorphs after. They're just trying to stop him so that he isn't able to get that burst off that he's normally been able to. But they're getting as much damage as they can on Waz. Chanimal has his pet stick down him. He's spamming Shadow Bolts into him. He's doing as much damage as he can to him. And they're all starting to get low. No wings available, too, from Minpoike here. There is a Hodge going out onto Goreki. They're trying to get damage on Chanimal, but he has his defensive cooldown up. And there is the Vendetta, though. It is on Chanimal. He's taking a ton of damage here. Minpoike is sitting in a Hex, but it doesn't matter because Chanimal is the one taking the damage here. Goreki is forced to bubble to get some heals out, and that's huge for them because the next Vendetta is going to spell trouble for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, absolutely. Goreki having no more defensive cooldowns available. Of course, that Avenger Crusader will be up in 10 seconds. Raikou getting bursted down, though, down to 10% HP in full retreat right now. Jamili doing an incredible amount of damage right there with that Bloodlust. It actually wasn't even Bloodlust. He has Bloodlust coming up in 5 seconds, so really anything can happen. I think Chanimal's got out some significant bursts there. Jamili now has that Bloodlust available. Raikou needs to be very, very careful. Luckily for him, he didn't use that Ice Block. He got away in the nick of time, so he still has that major defensive cooldown available. But Northern Gaming Blue thinking twice right now about pushing in again onto Temple Storm.
Yeah, and he's just trying to hit his Vendetta back up. It's up in 40 seconds. Minpoike has wings. They can push in here. They need to get going because Goreki has his Avenging Crusader, but he has no major cooldowns to stop the Vendetta damage. Jamili is trying to stay in on Raikou as much as possible, but if he ever gets polymorphed out there, it could spell trouble if they get cross CC on Goreki. There's a half poly on him. They're trying to get damage rolling on a Chanimal. Full poly on a Goreki. He immediately pops his wall in response, and there's no Vendetta to do damage. There is the combustion, but it's not as strong as Vendetta.
Yeah, this kill opportunity is coming up, though, for Northern Gaming Blue. Vendetta coming up in 13 seconds. Goreki has no cooldowns available for it. Chanimal does not have that sacrificial pact. He's going to be in a lot of trouble. He needs to get into a safer position. If Waz can connect to him with that Vendetta coming up in just a couple seconds, this could be the end of it for Tempo Storm. I don't know how they're going to react to this cooldown. Goreki excellently positioned right now. The kidney shot going out onto Chanimal. He's taking a lot of burst. Vendetta out once again. Raikou trying to get that CC out onto Goreki. Goreki still positioning himself quite nicely. Avenging Crusaders coming out. He's going to be healing for quite a bit. Goreki getting swapped to, though. He has no bubble available, down to around 20% HP. Raikou and Waz trying to do everything they can to reconnect. Chanimal spamming out those fears, trying to prevent Waz from reconnecting. The Hodge going out onto Waz as well. Jamili and Goreki doing some damage over onto him. Waz could be in a lot of trouble. He does have Evasion and Cloak of Shadows, does have to use it, but Goreki's still dangerously low, down to 10% HP. The Dragon's Breath coming out as well. Chanimal's throwing out that Legion Commander to prevent some of this incoming damage, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Goreki needs to get away. The Holy Light comes off. He's able to get a big heal onto himself, but I don't know how much longer he can live.
He's getting away now.
Speeding across the entire map, and he is going to be able to live for now.
Waz just chasing after him, though. He knows if he can get to him, he'll get the kill. He doesn't have any cooldowns. He shadow steps over. He's waiting for the Sun DR to come back up. It's going to be up in a few seconds here. There's the Garrote. If they can get a stun, it could end the game here, and they do just end it straight in the Garrote. Minpoike helps out with some damage to finish him off while Raikou gets the CC chain on the DPS.
Well played by Goreki. They're doing such an incredible job surviving, but ultimately Northern Gaming Blue on that Rogue Mage Paladin composition was able to whittle through their defensive cooldowns. Vendetta came up, they had no answer, and Northern Gaming Blue is going to take the first victory in this entire tournament, besting Temple Storm 3-1, and they will be advancing to the upper bracket for games later on today.
It's actually really, I'm looking at a really cool statistic right now, which is that the highest damage spell used on the team of Northern Gaming Blue there actually came from Minpoika, the healer, with a 218k Light of the Martyr. That's a lot of damage that came out of Minpoika at a clutch moment there to actually be able to score that kill. You pointed out, like, he moved in to actually help get that kill just as soon as he recognized, like, oh, we can actually just kill him right now. Moved in there, used that Light of the Martyr just to be able to knock Gorecki down right at that opportune moment. And just well played by Northern Gaming Blue. You guys said it as well. They really played that incredibly well.
Yeah, and both healers doing a lot of damage there. They were helping out during their Avenging Crusader, trying to get the other team down in those burst moments, in those stuns, and they really just had control of the whole match there. They weren't, Chanimals and them weren't able to stop them with the Fel Lord, with the usual Chanimal fear spam into tongues, into all these different things, and he just wasn't able to do what he normally did onto the enemy team. So Dalaran was definitely a better map for them, but I'm not happy with the pick that they chose because I think that really led to their doom in the end.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting choice. Like you pointed this out as well, Elliot, that they lost on Nagran, they lost on Tolvaran, and then they went for Valshara Arena. And while it's certainly smaller than Tolvaran, it's still about the same size as Nagran. So it's kind of like, and it's the same layout as Tolvaran in a lot of ways. So it was a little bit weird of a choice, but we are not going to worry about Tempo Storm anymore. They lost that series. In fact, what we're going to do now is we're going to head down to Rich, who is on stage with Waz, I believe. Rich, take it away.
Yeah, I am here with Waz. This guy played out of his mind, and now they have just taken the first series of the entire day. Now, Waz, we talked about it a little bit. You said that you are one of the best overall rogues. Do you want to kind of jump into why you actually said that and what makes you so good in that capacity?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be all around a good rogue on every single spec, and in this meta, Outlaw and Assassination is both the best specs, and that's the difference between me and Peekaboo, because I play both specs, and he doesn't really play Outlaw.
So you mentioned Peekaboo. Were you a little bit upset that you guys didn't get to do the mirror, that you didn't get to actually play against a rogue that you are rivals with?
I mean, not really. Like, it's all about winning, so I don't really care as long as like the game is good.
And yeah, it was a phenomenal game. Now, what do you think you add to your team? You're one of the youngest guys, so you're 18 years old, right? So being one of those younger guys, what X factor do you think you actually add into the equation? You have a lot of veterans on your team.
I add some fresh mind, and sometimes they need to be put in place by someone who's a bit younger and a bit fresh in the head, so that's good.
You heard it from Waz. He puts his team in place when he has to. Back to you guys, Josh.
Thanks so much, Rich. Yeah, I love that. Like, he's just basically saying, yeah, these guys are tournament veterans, but every once in a while, you need someone that can take a new perspective on the game and look at things a little bit differently. And maybe it's good every once in a while to not get too into the sort of like swing of things and get too set in your ways. How do you guys feel about that idea? Just like maybe sometimes you need some fresh blood on your team to break things up a little bit, even if you've already been playing with those teammates for ages.
Yeah, of course, it's really intelligent. You get new ideas. Obviously, Waz is a really good player, so just picking him up on that merit alone is going to be really, really important. But yeah, I think what he's saying has a lot of truth to it. Sometimes you can get set in your ways and your ideas of what is effective to win. So getting those new ideas, really, really important. And I think what he said has a lot of truth to it.
You can also hear them behind us. They're very excited about that victory.
Yeah.
I would be too in that situation, because winning that first game, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to BlizzCon, but it's a really good, solid first step on the road to the continued road to BlizzCon here coming out of opening week. But we're going to get the next series set up for you guys, and we will be getting into that as soon as possible. While we do that, we're going to go ahead and take a short break. Don't go anywhere.